Okay, this is the last video where we look at the national income. We're going to be looking at the implications and the multiplier effect. And it's really important to actually look at and understand the relationship between the tax and the government expenditure. So this is areas we've looked at in the session already. So when we think about the tax and the government expenditure, the net tax receipts, T, are the government's income. And the government expenditure, G, is a measure of that spending. Now we begin to look at terms now which I'm sure you may be familiar with, but perhaps not really sure what they mean. And if we hear the term there's a budget surplus, when T, the tax, is greater than the government expenditure, it basically means when there's more coming in than going out. And equally with a budget deficit, when actually tax is smaller than the government expenditure, is basically more going out than in. And in this case with the deficit, there's actually the need to borrow money to try and meet this expenditure, which is one of the problems the UK government has, and the government, as you're aware, are trying to reduce the deficit. So budget surplus, budget deficit, we're looking at the differences between tax the government collect in and their government expenditure. If we think about the GDP, the gross domestic product, and if we think if the level of the injections, J, is greater than the level of withdrawals, then actually we get economic growth and GDP rises. But if the level of injections is less than the level of withdrawals, then actually we get economic shrinkage and GDP will fall. So basically there's a rise in GDP when there's confidence in the market. There's confidence it's a good thing to invest in. Investments are made, the economy expands, there's more employment and higher wages. Where actually if there's a fall in GDP, there's actually low confidence in the market and therefore low investments are made and the economy contracts. So remember, when we think about the GDP, we're thinking about the total output of the country. And this is the circular flow of income diagram which we've been discussing in class. And we can see on this how the net taxes go to the government, and then equally the government expenditure can actually come in as an injection. Want to look at this multiplier effect, and it's really important that we actually understand the effect. It works on the principle that if you inject a small amount of money into the economy, it actually creates and increases an aggregate demand. And because of this, firms need more labour, so it creates more employment and more wages. And then rising on from that, with more wages and income, it actually creates more to spend as people have more money in their pockets, which likewise means there's a rise in aggregate demand and firms use more labour, and so on. This is the multiplier effect, and just got an example here. Now in this case the government injects £200 million in a project to build thousands of new affordable houses. So we can see that this £200 million actually creates extra demand and output into the economy. Now many businesses then benefit directly, including building supply industries, architects, builders and so on. And the building of new houses generates a new flow of factor incomes, including wages and profits. So the question is, will the extra income stay inside the circular flow of income and spending? And if so, the multiplier effect is likely to be strong, and the resultant impact on GDP is quite large. So we're actually looking at the money going around the circular flow of income. So it goes around and it goes around again, but money leaks out all the time. So the question is, for how long will this actually last? So if we think about the multiplier effect, the multiplier effect explains how an increase in injections will lead to a larger increase in GDP. So if the government spending increases by 20 million, then GDP might rise by 30 million if there's a multiplier effect of 1.5, and this can also apply in reverse to increases as withdrawals. So £20 million has been committed and spent. So people have money in their pocket for this factor payment for their wages, and a lot of this is going to get spent, resulting in the aggregate demand increasing. So the multiplier is reached using a marginal propensity to withdraw equation, or the proportion which is withdrawn before the money continues to go round the circular flow. So this £20 million, it goes into the circular flow. So we think about the marginal propensity, we think about how much is withdrawn to go into savings, and how much is withdrawn in the form of tax, and then how much is withdrawn in the form of imports. And then whatever is left actually then continues around the circular flow of income. And this is worked on the basis on this multiplier of 1.5. So it's used by government as justification for their policies to kickstart the economy. And although there are leakages withdrawals each time, you have to remember that tax comes back to the government. So part of this leakage is tax, so the tax is going back into the government's coffers. And so the government do actually use this as justification to kickstart the economy. There are a whole selection of variations in the multiplier, the size and structure of the economy, and thinking about the capacity to meet demand as it increases domestically. We think about the current state of the economy, level of employment. Is it high unemployment where this extra money actually would create new jobs, or is actually a lot of people already employed and it's just increasing people's hours or increasing the level of money in people's pockets? What type of intervention increase is needed, how long the intervention lasts for, the direction of change, whether or not there's small policy changes, and over what sort of time frame this regards. With the multiplier effect, the multiplier can't go on indefinitely. So as the aggregate demand rises, so withdrawals also rise. More savings, more tax, more imports. And we get to the stage where the injections become greater withdrawals and the GDP goes up, and the withdrawals go up until the injections equal withdrawals. So as the withdrawals approaches the injection, then growth slows. And when the withdrawals equals the injection, then growth actually stops. So it's just to remember, so if the injection is greater than the withdrawal, the GDP rises and withdrawals increase. And as withdrawals actually approach its injection level, then growth slows, and when the withdrawal equals the injection, growth stops. So we can actually see here that the money's injected in to the economy, aggregate demand increases, factor payments, but some does leak out, some goes into the banks as we've discussed before, and some goes back to the government in the form of tax, and some goes abroad. So it's something we'll be discussing further in the lectures.